Okay, shepherd's slash cottage pie. Um, Traditionally, shepherd's pie is made with lamb. Um, pretty much exactly the same as cottage pie, which is made with beef. Today, however, I'm making it with both, 50-50. So, call it what you want. I'm calling it shepherd's pie. Anyway, traditionally, as far as I know, and the way I've been making it or known it as traditional since the 80s is um, just carrots mixed with your meat, um, perhaps some Worcestershire sauce, uh, beef stock, all nicey nice. Oh, onions, excuse me, forgot onions. All mixed up nicey nice, meat browned, in a casserole, topped with mashed potatoes, and baked. I'm not traditional. Um, and I never make it the same way each time, usually. It depends on my mood. Today, we have white onion, excuse me, celery, peas, carrots, corn, green beans, um, shallots, a little salt, some pepper, some dill weed, parsley, and chives. And just now, I put spinach on at the very end because I want the spinach to, you know, do its thing, and that only takes a couple of moments to do. Once the spinach is where I want it to be, which it almost is, and the spinach you won't even notice in the end, really. It'll barely be there, but I had a little bit of spinach left over from making smoothies and stuff, and eggs and etc. And I wanted to get rid of it. I didn't want it to go to waste, so why not? Okay. The carrots are now soft, and they were the problem ones because, out of everything that I mentioned, the carrots and the celery are going to be the ones that take the longest to soften up. Now, the meat. Both the ground lamb and the ground beef, I seasoned 24 hours ahead of time. And in the beef, I seasoned it with black pepper, some sea salt, white pepper, red bell pepper, garlic, some green onion, and some parsley. The lamb, I seasoned with some sea salt, a little secret, don't tell nobody, some coffee, some black pepper, some garlic, minced onion, coriander, a little touch of sugar, some rosemary, red bell pepper, and I'm missing something, fennel. Okay, so that was 24 hours ago. At the 16-hour mark, I mixed the two together and added a little bit of crushed red pepper, some thyme, and some parsley, and let it sit for the remaining 8 hours. Where we're at right now, and this is what we have, and it smells so good, uncooked. Just now, right before I started talking to you people, I added in a little bit of flour to the meat, and that's because I want this to make its own gravy. I forgot to tell you, I'm sorry, these vegetables are being sauteed in European butter. I mean, of course, you could use regular butter, but for this, in my opinion, European butter is a better result. So now I'm going to put this camera down and start mixing in the meat, and we're going to let it brown slowly, and then we'll add in some beef broth and a little Worcestershire. Okay, the meat is in. As you can see, I made a little home for it in the center, and now we're just going to start breaking it up a little bit. This is going to take me a little bit of time. So somebody once asked me why I don't give out precise measurements of ingredients lots of times, and I said because I don't measure. When it comes to things that I've made multiple times over the years, there's no need for me to measure. It's by taste and by mood. So I don't measure. In this case, I can give a little bit of measurements. So I used a pound of ground lamb and a pound of ground beef. However, not all of that made it to this. This is about a pound and a half. Yeah, about a pound and a half. Because the other half pound, after I mixed them together 8 hours ago, I separated to make burgers with at a later date. So yeah, anyway, this was about 3 celery stalks chopped, about 1 white onion, large white onion chopped, diced for the celery and the white onion. This was about 1 carrot, 1 large carrot, diced. And then you got me on the rest of the vegetable. Again, everything is to taste. How much seasoning you use is to taste. I didn't use a lot of salt in totality so far between the meat and the vegetables. This much in this big old pan. There might be 2 pinches of salt. The reason being is the potatoes have bacon grease in them. And of course, bacon has its own salt component. Cheese has its own salt component. And this, with those potatoes, is going to have more cheese than what's in the potatoes. But we'll get to that. So I have this probably on my stove is on medium right now, and I'm browning slowly. I don't want the temperature higher, because I'm not trying to sear this. I want this to brown slowly because I want to render as much fat as possible out of the meat at a slower pace. And that's by design. Doing it that way, you'll get more of the fat out than trying to do it at a higher heat. You'll actually get more of the fat rendered out. And we're looking like I want it to. We're almost mixed to the point where I like it. Any big obvious pieces of meat that need to be broken up. I'm just breaking that up right now. Anything that's really big, let me see one that I want to break up. Okay, so like this right here, I want to break this up. And this is simple. All I'm doing, and I shouldn't have to tell anybody, but just in case, all I'm doing is pushing down and pulling apart. Push down, pull apart. Push down, pull apart. That's it. And then mix it up. Make sure the meat is incorporated with the vegetables. And this looks like... Alright, so we're at a point right now where I'm good to just let it go without touching it for a little bit, and then we'll be back. Alright, so I just added the Worcestershire sauce in there, and it's not a lot. I mean, it's like 1/8 of a cup, if that. Again, didn't measure. I was too busy dashing. And now some unsalted beef broth. And yes, it's the store-bought beef broth. Alright, and I would say that was probably about, a smidge over half a cup. And there's no need for me to stir it. I can hear that there's nothing sticking to the bottom of the pan. Had I heard something sticking to the bottom of the pan after I poured in the beef broth, then I would have done this to scrape the bottom of the pan and get any of that good umami. Yes, that's what it's called. Out of the bottom of the pan. Umami. That's the brown bits in the bottom of a pan after you've been sauteing something. Lots of flavor in that. But anyway, I knew that there wasn't anything sticking to the bottom of the pan. So we're just going to let this go for a little bit. And then well, let me see. No, not quite ready yet. So shepherd's pie, just like with a lot of other foods that we eat today and don't realize, started out as a, for lack of a better term, poor person's food. You know, over there in England, Ireland, Scotland, these poor farmers used what they had to eat. You know, unlike a lot of us Americans these days who want to be picky about stuff. But anyway, you know, Scotland, well, they got a lot of woolly things running around up there, hence the lamb meat. You get into Southern Ireland and England and stuff, and, you know, they got cows, beef. So they use what they had to make food that now, today, people consider fancy. It's just down home cooking from Europe. So, you know, that will be that. Now, we're almost at the point, we're not quite there yet. Alright, so remember what I was saying about the flour and making its own gravy? Now, if you look, see how that beef broth is pretty much all gone? It's not just yet. The beef broth, the flour that I coated the meat with before putting it in here with the vegetables, the bacon, the butter that I sauteed the vegetables in, is all coming together to make a gravy that you just don't see yet. But I promise you, it's there. It'll be there. Okay. Alright, so we got it to the point where I want it. Now, before I turn the heat off, we're going to taste this to make sure it is at the point where I want it. I gotta grab a spoon, sorry. Or something. Okay. This is the last chance to taste this to make sure my seasoning level is where I want it to be. Now, having said that, y'all need to start seasoning your food. You know who you are. I'm not going to call no names or point nobody out. But y'all need to start seasoning your food. You don't just season one thing. You have to season your food dimensionally. Every layer needs some seasoning. That doesn't mean every layer needs salt. But every layer needs something. Anyway, so we're going to try. We'll try that right there. For seasoning, the meat is done enough for me to taste it and not be afraid of getting sickums. Okay, so. Okay. Tender, perfect. Alright. Turn the heat off. And then we'll be back. You know what? I'm feeling special. So, I just added just a sprinkle of plain breadcrumbs and some Parmesan cheese, just a touch. There'll be more Parmesan cheese later. That was planned on. Right now it wasn't. But that's okay. My opinion is make a recipe once, following whichever directions you've chosen, and then once you get a taste for it, the hang of it, make it your own. Experiment if you want to, but make it your own. And you don't have to be a chef to know how to do any of that. Just make it your own. That's what my mama used to do. Alright, so anyway, the oven is preheated at 400. And this I want to sit for a few minutes. Just bring everything together, tighten it up. That's important. And then we'll come back and we'll get this in some casserole dishes. Okay, so if you notice, there's two pans here. This one is dinner tonight. This one is going to go in the freezer later. But anyway, let's go up here to this one. So I put just a little bit more Parmesan cheese on there. I like Parmesan cheese. Get over it. And I like my shepherd's pie cheesy. And I crumbled some extra sharp white cheddar cheese on there. You could use yellow cheddar cheese. In this particular case, I like white cheddar cheese for two reasons. One, it does taste a little bit different than yellow. And two, I like doing it with white cheddar cheese for a shepherd's pie, so there isn't an orange layer of delineation between the meat and the potatoes. So anyway, I have to go back and put the cheddar cheese on this, and then we put it in the oven, which is just about at temperature. Got about another couple of minutes. So then we bake it. Excuse me, wait a minute. I'm gonna skip the step. After I get the cheese on this one, then we put mashed potatoes on there. And got to talk about these mashed potatoes. All right, as you can see, I've got one covered with mashed potatoes already, and this one still yet to do. Well, let's talk about these mashed potatoes for a second. One, if I'm making mashed potatoes as a side dish to go with like steak or chicken or whatever, I liked actual mashed potatoes. Old school, old fashioned mashed potatoes. Like my mother used to make with lumps. I don't, I'm not a big, huge fan of whipped potatoes. Whipped potatoes and mashed potatoes, in my opinion, are not the same. Anyway, when making shepherd's pie or cottage pie, I like my potatoes to have a creamy consistency. So, I use russet potatoes. I would much rather use butter potatoes because they have a buttery taste to them naturally, even though I'm going to add more butter to them anyway. Um, and they're not, the flesh inside is not white like a russet or a red potato. It's actually yellow. But they didn't have any, so I used 4 big russet potatoes, so probably about 3.5 pounds, maybe 4. Boil them like normal, skin on, because I like my mashed potatoes with the skin on. And anybody who doesn't, if you've ever eaten my mashed potatoes, you've had them with the skin on. You might not have realized it. Anyway, so into these mashed potatoes, we have some bacon grease, bacon, European butter, black pepper, lots of black pepper, some roasted garlic, some chives, shallots, a little bit of salt, white pepper, parsley, dill weed, and I don't use milk in my mashed potatoes. No. I use cream cheese. You heard me. Cream cheese. Garlic chive cream cheese. And this is cold. Look at this. It's not stiff. It's nice and whipped. So now, if you notice, the front of the spoon is pretty clean. The back is what I'm using to scoop the potatoes out with. Oh God, one hand. Sorry. And this is all you do. I generally start in the corners. And I start in the corners, then go to the sides, here, 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 and get the center, and then I start to smooth it out until it looks like that. And I doubt I'm going to be able to do it with one hand, which no, I'm not. So, because I need to hold the pan. So you'll come back when I get. All right, we are ready to go in the oven. Now, if you notice, these are not perfectly smooth. There's peaks and valleys. That is on purpose. The reason you could do it perfectly smooth, to be honest with you, the reason I want peaks and valleys is purely aesthetic. That's it. So, I mean, you could even get fancy if you want. Take your fork and drag it through and make patterns and all that other fun stuff. And because I've seen it done that way. Every one of those ridges that you create, if you decide to do something like that, is just going to be a place where it browns. That's it. I'm not going through all that. These peaks and valleys, the way I had them in there, not ridges, so to speak, is all that I want. This is going to go to the chef. Okay? Now, how long do you put this in the oven? Well, dunno. You need to check. You're the cook. How long it's going to take? You want the mashed potatoes to brown. And I would say you know it's done when it's just a little bit past golden. Not brown like that. They pay no attention to my ashy arm. Not brown like me. But definitely darker than that. And you see the tip of this spoon? That is, you want it to be just a little lighter than that, probably. So just a little bit past golden. How long is that going to take? That depends on really what you put in these mashed potatoes. If you put egg in it, I don't know why you would, but I've seen people do it when making shepherd's pie. It's going to get to that point faster. But no. Remember, there's European butter in here and bacon grease in here. So those two things are going to lend themselves to the potatoes browning faster than if there wasn't bacon grease in there. But at the same time, they're going to... Anyway, you'll see. So now, put these in the center of your oven. You want it on the center rack, in the center of the center rack, uncovered. I'm going to let that go while I wash these dishes. And after about 10 minutes, I'll go back and check them to see if it's where I want it to be. All right, we're going to check our potatoes. And no, they're not where I want them to be. So, going forward, I'm going to check it every 5 or 6 minutes to see if I got my golden like I wanted. Okay, let's check our potatoes, see where we're at. And yes, that's just what I want. All right, now take it out. And, oh, one, and, well, the other one I'm going to need 2 hands for. Now I'm going to let it cool for about 5 minutes, and then we'll cut into it, and give you a look. Actually, wait a minute. I want to show you something on the side here. That right there. That's why we're going to let it cool for a couple of minutes. Okay. We are at the moment of truth. There you go. I've cut my piece out. And here we have it. Okay. I don't know why they call this a pie, because it's clearly a casserole, but maybe way back when there was no such thing as a casserole, so they call it a pie because it was baked. Who knows? I don't know. But let's go in here for a taste. So you can see, oops, you made me lose my taste. Okay. Alright, we'll just get another one. The top of the mashed potatoes is slightly crispy. The inside, I can tell already, is creamy. The vegetables and everything. Alright, time for a taste. The mashed potatoes are crispy on the top, silky inside. Vegetables are nice and tender. The corn and the carrots are soft but have a little bit of a bite. The meat, the only word I'm going to be able to use for it is succulent. Make this, put your own spin on it. Do it the way you know you and your family are going to like it. Season your food and enjoy it.